but you know, the history of any place is really about its people. And we've had some outstanding people here. You know, I don't want to name all these, but you know, some of these you recognize. Obviously, Henry Sugimoto. We have our own Nobel Prize winner up here with James Rainwater, who worked on the Manhattan Project. You know, from little old Hanford. We got a couple of movie stars down here. Some movie stars up there. You know, there's George C. Marshall, and this is our own Richard Wing from the thing, he learned to cook by cooking for Marshall, who was sort of a gourmet. So we got our restaurant because he, you know, cooked for Marshall. This was actually post-war there, and we had a flying ace, Flying Tigers ace, who started in the war before that. Plenty of sports figures, including, you know, maybe a lot of you don't know Tyson Chandler, but the kids will know him. You know, he's 7'1" or something like, big, huge guy. He left Hanford at 8 years old, when he was 8 years old, but his grandparents still live here. He learned to play basketball on a hoop that his grandfather nailed to a tree on his farm. I don't know if the hoop's still there, but apparently the grandparents are still there. So, you know, that's where he started, and, you know, look where he is today. Okay, world champion cowboy. Now that kind of makes sense where we're at, you know, here, Cuff Burrell. And an interesting story is Cuff Burrell was actually the one who gave Slim Pickens his nickname. Because Slim Pickens was from Hanford High School. He wanted to become a rodeo star like Cuff Burrell. Only he wasn't really very good. And Cuff Burrell basically, hey, the Pickens are going to be really slim for you in rodeo. You better find something else to do. So Slim Pickens became a rodeo cowboy. And that led to his getting into movies and the acting business, where he became successful. Okay, we had the world champion softball team. They raised money to hire or to rent a private plane, you know, a charter plane to take the team over to Kansas City or someplace at that particular time. Okay, we have local politicians. A lot of people don't know that Cesar Chavez started his political career here, working for the, I'll think of it in a moment, one of the organizations there, but he was the leader of one of the organizations here in Hanford before he really became big. Of course, at that time, nobody knew who he was. Now we sort of know who he was. You know, and Nicole Barra, you know, we're waiting to see whether her, you know, shenanigans with Sacramento are going to play out in the current election or not. So, Jean Shepherd, some of you may know her. She's a grand old country music star, Hall of Fame singer. Was discovered singing in a place here in Hanford. Okay, Steve Perry, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Born in Hanford, went to Lemoore High School. Still, his parents apparently still live in the area. They had a chicken farm. Okay. 1892, there's the guys who were the commissioners for Kings County. It was their responsibility to organize the election after the state legislature passed the bill and the governor signed it, that organized the county, and still had to be voted on by the people whether they wanted to do it. So these were guys that were in charge of that kind of a thing. So I guess you could call them the founders or the fathers or whatever. These are the guys who had the biggest hand in officially getting the county started. Okay, our first real government center. Before that, the offices were scattered around upstairs here and over there. This first government center, you recognize, it's still there today, still being used, still controversies going on today. You know, you've been reading the paper about all the fights that have been coming about up there. They had plenty of fights in there of different kinds in the past. And over there on the side, you see the Bastille, which was the county jail. Well, all that moved. And we're still having controversies over where to put our jails and what kind of jails to put elsewhere. In fact, one of our board of supervisors apparently lost her position because of disagreements over what we're going to do with the jails. And that's part of the reason why this ended out where it did, to, as much as possible, try to divorce this idea that Hanford and Kings County were the same thing. And to a certain extent, this book, Kings County, is a response to that same kind of thing. Well, how come you don't do a book on Lemoore? You've done 2 on Hanford. How come you don't do a book on Lemoore? So, you know, the next move is to do Kings County. So that's in response to this kind of a thing too, that we tend to often think of Hanford and Kings County as being one and the same thing. That's not exactly true. Okay, things didn't always go good for the county. Some of you may be aware of this or not, but Kings County was originally part of Tulare County, with some parts of it that were part of Fresno County. Well, when they divided the part from Fresno County that became Kings County, one of the things they did is they marked it with a tree, and they wrote down all of the, all the directions for how to get there. Well, in the 20s, you'll see that later, when oil was discovered over there at the Kettleman Hills, Fresno say, wait a minute, that's a lot of money over there. I think that's in Fresno County, actually, not in Kings County. And they accused Kings County of stealing Kettleman Hills oil fields. And there was this big controversy. Who really owned the Kettleman Hills oil fields, Kings County or Fresno? Fresno claimed it was theirs and trotted out one set of county lines. Kings County said, no, it's ours, trotted out another set. Well, this guy right here took a team and they followed the original instructions, started on the Kings River in Reedley and tracked it all the way back. And when they got over in the hills over here, guy said, okay, I want you to go 25 yards this way and pound a stake. Okay, and guy walks over there. He said, I can't. He said, why? There's a tree in the way. It was that tree. They had nailed this thing almost exactly to the foot, following the instructions. That's pretty doggone good. And so they found this. The bark of that is in the museum in Burris Park from the tree. And supposedly the tree still stands, or at least it did a few years ago. So Joe Neves, I think, went up there and found it. So that's one of those interesting stories not everybody's interested in. And there you will still hear rumblings about that from old-timers who still think that Fresno, or that Kings County, swiped millions of dollars worth of oil from Fresno. Okay, the first city we're going to look at is Hanford, founded in January 1877, sort of. There is no founding date because it's around that time that the railroad released their layout plat of that, but it was incorporated in 1891. Okay, this is how it kind of looked there, and this is Baker's Drug Store. Really one of the first businesses. This is, essentially brand spanking new.